and access control of the UI. And whenever I'm talking about the UI, I mean the web server, the web interface, because I know that UI can be an ambiguous term, but here I mean Airflow UI. So today I want to cover the following topics. So first I will talk about how we've approached controlling access to the classic Airflow UI so far in Cloud Composer. And then I will discuss how we integrated Cloud Composer with the role-based access control RBAC Airflow UI. So whenever I say classic UI, I mean non-RBAC as opposed to RBAC UI. And then I will cover two specific topics, which I think may be interesting from the technical point of view, like how we integrated login to Airflow UI with Cloud Identity-Aware Proxy. And I will also describe the feature that we've added on top of Airflow RBAC, which is per folder auto-registration of roles and DAG permissions. Yeah, so far in Cloud Composer, whenever you created a Composer environment, you are getting the non-RBAC classic web interface, which is the default for Airflow 1.x environments in Composer, and generally it is the default in Airflow 1, right? So this was and this is the environment that you get by default. But even though the classic Airflow UI doesn't offer fine-grained access control measures, we are still applying cloud-side access control when the user is accessing the classic Airflow UI. So all the requests from the users go through Cloud Identity-Aware Proxy. This is another service in Google Cloud Platform, which handles authentication and authorization. So you log into your Google account, and then Cloud Identity-Aware Proxy checks in Cloud IAM whether you are allowed to view the Airflow UI. And so to let a user access Airflow UI, you need to grant the user the specific permission, which is Composer environments get, and you grant it on the project in which your Cloud Composer environment is located. You do it through Cloud IAM settings, and this permission is included, for example, in the Composer user role. Right? So you set this role on the user, and this way the user can access the Airflow UI. But it is like a coarse-grained setting. Like either the user can open and browse the whole UI, or they cannot access it at all. So this has worked fine for our customers, for Composer users so far. But obviously, first of all, in Airflow itself, especially in Airflow 2, the role-based access control, the RBAC UI, is the future. And of course, it includes features that the classic UI doesn't offer. So the time has come for Cloud Composer to also start supporting Airflow RBAC out of the box. So now in Composer you can have environments with Airflow RBAC UI enabled. Currently, this feature on the Composer side is launched to the previous stage, which is public preview, so anyone can try this out. Yeah, the Airflow RBAC UI in Composer is available for the recent Composer versions and recent Airflow versions, essentially. And to enable RBAC UI in Cloud Composer, just like in Airflow, you just set the appropriate entry in the configuration. So in case of Composer, this is set through the Airflow configuration override. When you create or update a Composer environment, you set web server RBAC true in the UI and the CLI or through Composer API. And this way you get the environment with RBAC UI. And of course, you get all the goodness that comes with Airflow RBAC, which is generally managing users, permissions, and roles within Airflow. I will not discuss this all these features in details here. I think what is more interesting is how we integrated Airflow RBAC access control with Cloud IAM and the access control that we have used so far. So the identity-aware proxy is still there. So the access to the environment, to the environment's web interface as a whole is still controlled through identity-aware proxy. So this hasn't changed. So the user authenticates here and is authorized. And again, this is like the high-level authorization to the web interface. And then Airflow RBAC UI still, just like in the vanilla Airflow, operates on the RBAC tables within the Airflow metadata database. So it has its own representation of the security model. Users, permissions, and roles. And this is how the fine-grained authorization is handled. What is interesting, like we don't do kind of a double authentication. I will speak about this more in a few minutes. So now, when Airflow RBAC is enabled, you configure access essentially in two places. So just like before, to let the user open the web interface at all, you specify the user in the Cloud IAM settings of your project, and you grant the permission there. And then for Airflow permissions, the access control settings within Airflow, you set this configuration in Airflow RBAC UI. So the user must be granted appropriate roles to view appropriate pages, access specific DAGs, and so on. So now you may ask, but how are the users registered in Airflow RBAC? Like, how do the user records appear there? So if a user hasn't visited the Airflow RBAC instance of the given environment before, they will be registered in Airflow RBAC automatically. And I'll talk about the details of this process in the next few slides. The registration is similar to how you would to how it would look like if you enabled, for example, Google authentication, the built-in Google authentication in Airflow. So the user is registered with the numerical user ID of their Google account as the username, and with their email address as the email. Also, administrators can pre-register users by adding the user records manually. Then they set the email address as the username, and it gets resolved to the user ID at the user login time, which is of course useful if the administrator wants to assign roles to users before they show up in the Airflow UI. In Composer, we are setting the default registration role, so the role that the new users that are automatically registered in Airflow UI get. We take it from the web server RBAC user registration role property. This is Composer's custom property, and so this way you can control what is the role of the default role of the users that log in to Airflow. The default user registration role is admin, because the standard scenario that we expect administrators will follow is that after they create the environment, the first users, so those administrators will log into Airflow, and they will be registered as admins, and then they can change the registration role to, for example, user, so that the next users that come in don't have full admin permissions, but just some reasonable limited permissions for the regular users. And the reason why this is set through a custom property is that we don't in Composer we don't expose the web server config that is normally used for setting this kind of permissions, because we are essentially simplifying and populating the web server config with some pre-configured options, and essentially this is the only input that we need from the user, like what's the default role that they should get when they log in for the first time. All right, so now I will talk about more details of how exactly the login in Airflow UI is integrated with the Google account login. So the problem that we are facing here was double authentication, essentially, because like I showed in the earlier diagram, we have these two steps of managing access control. So one is through Cloud Identity-Aware Proxy, and the other one is in Airflow RBAC itself. And if we keep them both configured the default way, the user would need to authenticate twice, essentially. Like first here in Cloud IAP, and then again they would get this screen, and they would need to sign in through Google here as well. So we want to simplify this, and because we want to keep Cloud Identity-Aware Proxy as like guarding the access to the Airflow web server, we've essentially modified or came up with a custom login handler that allowed us to eliminate this second authentication in Airflow RBAC. So the way it works is that the identity-aware proxy, after it authenticated and authorized the user, it sends the request to the backend. In this case, the backend is Airflow RBAC UI, and it adds additional headers. One of them is this signed header, which contains information about the user who has logged in to identity-aware proxy. In particular, it contains the sub field. I think it's short for subject, which is a unique stable identifier for the user, and email, which is the user email address. So Airflow UI already knows what user is accessing. So this second authentication isn't really needed in this particular setup when the access is strictly controlled by a proxy like Cloud Identity-Aware Proxy. So once we get the signed header in Airflow RBAC UI, it goes to the special login handler that we've prepared actually with our partners from Polydia here. So first we decode user ID and email address from the header, so those fields that I showed on the previous slide. And then the handler looks up the user in the RBAC tables in the metadata database, and if the user has been pre-registered with the email address, then the record is updated with the user ID. Or if the user doesn't exist at all, then the user record is created. So this is this auto registration to Airflow RBAC that is happening. So at this point, the user exists, so we can log the user in. So now I will talk about the per folder auto registration feature. So in Airflow RBAC, there is this very nice feature of DAG-level permissions, which to me is one of the key features of Airflow RBAC, and why I would want to use Airflow RBAC instead of the classic UI. So this model offers per DAG permissions that can be added to roles, and to do this, like it can either be done in Airflow RBAC UI or in the DAG code, right? There is the access control property, although it's, at least in Airflow 1, right, it requires syncing by refreshing the DAGs in Airflow UI or running the sync perm CLI command. So it's not fully automated, I would say, and even if it was synced automatically, then still you need to remember about setting this in your DAGs or apply some common settings to your DAGs. So we are thinking how to automate associating DAGs with roles here, and we came up with an interesting idea of the feature that we call per folder roles auto registration that we offer in Cloud Composer. Currently, it's in private preview, so it's not available publicly. You need to be allow listed to be able to use it, but that's because it's an early phase, and we are gathering feedback on this feature. At the end of my talk, I will also tell you if you want to try it out, like how to reach out to us and test it yourselves. So how does this feature work? So we automate the DAG to role assignment. So something that was previously done either in the UI or in DAG code, simply by the folder in which the DAG is located. So, for example, if we have DAGs in the subfolders of the main DAGs folder, then we can assume that those are the groups of DAGs that should be associated with different roles. So For example, the following structure of the DAGs folder is automatically translated to the following structure of roles and the assigned permissions in the Airflow RBAC table. So essentially, for each DAG, we add the DAG edit and DAG read permissions to the roles, which names are taken directly from the subfolders. This feature, just like RBAC itself, is enabled through yet another Airflow property that you set through Airflow configuration overrides in Composer. Again, this one is in private preview for now. And how it works. So there is like no magic here or no extensive patching of Airflow. We actually used the existing Airflow cluster policy feature, and we implemented this as a piece of logic injected through this existing mechanism in Airflow, which I think is a good example of how the cluster policy can be used. So the cluster policy allows you to run custom code for every task or DAG parsed and loaded in Airflow scheduler, and this is exactly why we added this logic to our custom cluster policy. So all the cluster policy does is that it extracts the top level folder name from the DAG file path and uses it directly as the role name. Then it retrieves the RBAC security manager from the cached app builder object, essentially the Python object that allows us to query and modify the RBAC access control settings in the Airflow database. Then we create the role if it doesn't exist yet, and then we add the can DAG edit and read permissions on the given DAG to the role, and we do this for all the roles. So this way the authors of the DAGs or the administrators don't need to worry about assigning DAGs to different roles. They can just have a contract that, okay, for this folder, maybe the folder belongs to this team, the other folder belongs to another team, or maybe these are just groups of DAGs to which we want to control access by assigning them to the roles and then granting the roles to specific users. All right, so I want to do just a quick demo, essentially showing how this works live. So yeah, in Cloud Composer, in the environment details page, you can see that for an environment that has RBAC enabled, as I said, there is this configuration override, and then you open you access the web UI through the link posted there. Let me just quickly change the language here. Yeah, and this is the sign-in prompt that you get from Cloud IAP, essentially, to log in. So you choose your Google account. I'm already authenticated here, so just choosing the account is enough. And this way, I access the Airflow UI, and now this is the RBAC UI with all the settings. So like I showed, there is in the list of user, like Airflow UI gets the user ID and the email from Cloud Identity-Aware Proxy, and it creates the user record accordingly. So in the second quick example, I have an environment which has this other feature enabled, the per role per folder roles auto registration. It is enabled. Also, I logged in so that I logged in first after I created my environment with only these two settings. So I am registered as admin, but then I changed the user registration role to the user so that next users don't get admin permissions. So now how does the auto registration work? So I uploaded a bunch of DAGs to the DAGs folder, and just like in the example from the slides, I grouped them by subfolders, right? So in each subfolder there are some DAGs, and that was it. Like that's all I did. And after a couple of minutes, when the scheduler has processed these DAGs, well, of course they showed up here, but also the roles and the corresponding permissions showed up in the RBAC settings. So you can see, that, for example, for this bar DAGs folder, the role appeared, and it has permissions on the DAGs that exist in this folder. Plus, of course, all the permissions that are added to custom roles by default by Airflow. So now we can use these roles to assign the different groups of DAGs to the users, right? So I pre-registered some sample users in here, and also I am registered as an admin. So let's do a quick experiment. So if I limit my role to just this one, should only, access denied because I can no longer access the users page, but I can access this page. But now, I'm no longer an admin, so I don't see the security and admin settings here. But also, I only see the DAGs that existed in this folder. Okay. I think I clicked back too many times. Anyway, those were the DAGs that existed in the bar DAGs folder. And now, as I'm only assigned this role, I can only see these DAGs. All right, so that's it for my talk. If you want to learn more, you can visit the Airflow RBAC page under Cloud Composer documentation. This one is for the public preview feature of the Airflow RBAC availability. And if you want to try out the per folder roles auto registration feature that I mentioned in Cloud Composer, you can contact this email address, cloudcomposerfeedback@google.com, and we can grant you access to this feature.